Hey guys, it's Randy with the Lowbuck LS again, and this episode we're going to be installing a boost gauge. So should be a fairly quick and simple episode, I think. So I'll flip the camera around and we'll get started here. Okay, so the boost gauge I'm going to put in, I just got off Amazon. It's this Bosch FST 8213, and I've already got a hole cut for it. It's going to go in my cup holders. I don't know, a year or so ago when I put in my air-fuel ratio wideband O2 gauge, that's where I put it. So I'm going to put the boost gauge just opposite of it. So like I said, I already cut the hole using a hole saw. So now we'll get that mounted in there and work on connecting the wiring and the tubing. Okay, so I ended up making a bit of a mess of this plastic piece that the boost gauge is going into, because the hole I had cut wasn't quite big enough, so I tried drilling my hole saw at a bit of an angle to make the hole a little bigger and ended up breaking that plastic piece. So next time I'm at the junkyard, I'll see if I can find another one. But and then the other change I made was initially it had this 1/8 plastic tubing with this fitting on there, which has a 1/8 NPT, but I was having a hard time. This piece of hose wasn't long enough to go from where the boost gauge mounts to the turbo, which is up in that front corner of the hood. So I needed to extend it, and I didn't have any of this 1/8 tubing, but I had some of this 1/4 inch clear plastic tubing, but I couldn't find a union to join this tubing up with that tubing, so I ended up getting a new fitting on the back of that boost gauge, which basically it's gonna be in 1/4 inch hose instead of 1/8, and then I got the wires extended here to run over to the fuse box. So got boost line and wiring hooked up to it. Now I'll bolt this back into the truck where it belongs, and then we'll run that wiring and tubing where it needs to go. Alright, so I got my busted cup holder with gauges put back into the truck, and the wires and tubing zip tied under there. And coming over here, I'm basically I ran this plastic tubing line in the last video, so I'm going to put a union in here and connect these two. I should have ran this a foot longer, and I wouldn't have had to put a union there, but oh well. And then the wiring for the light for that gauge, I got ran over to the fuse box, and I'm just going to tie it into the same fuse as you saw in the last video there that's running my intercooler pump. So it'll come on when the key is on and turn off when the key is off. And then the ground wire I just brought over here, and I'll ground it to the same place where I've got my intercooler pump grounded and my O2 wideband air-fuel ratio gauge. So get that union put in, get the power hooked up, get the ground hooked up, and then we'll go under the hood and get the other end of the tubing hooked up. Okay, so I got that union put in there, got our ground wire hooked up with the other grounds there, and got our power wire hooked up. So now when I turn the key on, the light should come on for that boost gauge. So I'll put this knee panel back in, and then we'll go under the hood and hook up the other end of that boost line. Okay, so under the hood here, you can see I've got that T fitting threaded into my compressor housing, and one side of the T goes to operate the wastegate, and in the other side I'm just going to put in this 1/8 by 1/4 inch tube fitting and connect this piece of plastic tubing here. So we'll get that done, and then we'll take her for a test drive and see if that boost gauge works, and we'll see if Lowbuck Tuck wants to come for a ride. Okay, so I got that tubing line hooked up there, and that runs back around through the firewall to that boost gauge. So I think we're ready to take this thing for a test drive and see if that boost gauge works. But first I'll show you that my dog is a Chevy fan and not a Ford fan, because he won't get into my white Ford work truck here. Let's try that. Tucker, come here. He's all happy. But no, won't get in. But let's try the Chevy. Oh, this side, Tuck. He likes the low buck truck. Whoops. I'm gonna crush him. Still a little hesitant. Oh, and he's breaking chunks of rust. Look how bad those rockers are. They weren't that bad when I first got this truck, but so that'll be a upcoming project soon once we've got it running right. But Low Buck Tuck's ready to go for a ride, so let's go for a cruise and see if that boost gauge works. So we might as well see how this thing starts from dead cold. See how our idle and startup tuning is doing. Still needs a little more startup airflow, I think, so still took 10 seconds or so to come up to its normal idle. So looks like the light is on in that boost gauge. Idling just a little lean too, but it might be because that wideband O2 isn't warmed up yet. So let's go for a drive and let the truck warm up, and then we'll get into the boost a little bit. Okay, I don't know if you guys will be able to hear me at all, but truck is up to temperature here. So we'll see if this boost gauge works. And it does. Still got a little tuning to do. You can hear that stumble there, but I think that has to do with my PCV system. So I'll hit her again here. Gauge is working. Okay, the other thing we got to test is see if that light goes off when I turn the key off. So turn off the truck and that light goes out. So boost gauge is working. So flip the camera around here for a second. Okay, we're gonna wrap this one up. As you can see, I don't know if you could hear when I was driving there, but boost gauge is working, but there's a bit of a stumble at when I hit about 5 pounds of boost. So that'll be the next couple videos. Gonna get rid of the PCV system and maybe install a catch can or two, and do some more street drivability and wide open throttle tuning with HP tuners. So that's gonna be it for this one. We'll talk to you on the next one. And Low Buck Tuck. Hey Tuck, say bye. Low Buck Tuck says bye, so talk to you next time.